You can't deadlift without pulling, right? You have to pull. But you can deadlift without pushing. You have to earn the right to add weight to the bar. Now, I know the technical people at home are going to say, well, how did you hurt yourself doing a squat then? Okay, good question. Because sometimes it's the weakest link. Leg day. Now, I've got 2 leg days a week. And as promised from my last session, I'm going to try and keep my promise. We're going to start with deadlifts. So even though I start with deadlifts, I always like to warm up my knees with the same no weight leg press through the balls of the feet, maximizing knee bend, get my knees nice and warm. So if you guys watched my last deadlift session, my last squat session, I did a 300 kilogram squat top set, and then I wanted to do 2 back down sets, but I hurt my, I don't know if it was adductor or hamstring. It's pretty hard to tell. It could even be hamstring. Executive decision. 1 back down set only. Call it what you want, bitching out, I don't know, maybe. But I'll tell you now, I feel a slight strain in my adductor. And lucky I did, because probably an hour after my session, I was limping. And it's been kind of painful ever since. But get this, so that was on Monday. It's Friday now. And every day it was tight, but getting a little bit better. Today, strangely enough, it feels kind of okay. Like there's a bit of tension there, I can feel it. But it feels okay enough to give it a go, at least. So what I'm gonna do is try and deadlift. And this is gonna be the start of my deadlift block. So if you guys remember, it was a squat specialization program that got me to 300 kilograms. And the idea of my programming is squats and deadlifts, they interfere with each other for recovery. And if you try and do heavy deadlifts on the same weeks as heavy squats, it's hard for both of them to increase at the same time. So that's why my last phase was focusing on squats, but deadlifts were just like an accessory. I was doing stiff-legged deadlifts. And then I hit my squat target, so now I thought, what I'm gonna do is flip that. So I'm gonna prioritize deadlift and keep my squats as an accessory. There's a lot of differences. So squats are just not as fatiguing as deadlifts. So it's not gonna be the same way. So with the deadlifts, all I did was stiff-legged deadlifts and lots and lots of squats. I'm not just gonna do lots and lots of deadlifts and only a small squat variation. That doesn't make sense. You can't do high volume deadlift programs. Well, you can, but I just don't think that they work very well. So what I'm going to do is deadlift once a week until I get to my first goal, which I could be at. So my first goal is 310, and if I am there already, then I'll change that goal to 320 kilograms. You know, my goal should be 320 because 310 is not that good, considering I can squat 300, you know what I'm saying? That's what my goal's gonna be. I'm gonna deadlift every week until I get to a 320. I don't know where I'm at, that's what we're gonna test today. So when I say test, I'm not gonna do a 1 rep max test, I'm just gonna feel it. I wanna do a top single, but it won't be a max. I want it to be comfortable, and this is my introduction to deadlifts. And I'll tell you what my accessories are gonna be, more quad work, because quad work is very good. It's my favorite accessory exercise to help your deadlift. So get this, Thor Bjornsson, when I met him, he had a 450 kilogram deadlift. And I asked him what his squat was, and he didn't know. He said, I kind of just squat 200 kilograms for reps, and because it's not a competition lift in strongman. So I don't really test my squat strength. And I said to him, that's strange. Don't you think if you're the world's strongest man, you should be squatting at least 400 kilograms? And he said, that sounds like a good idea. Anyway, long story short, we got him to 460 kilograms. And then the next year, he deadlifted 501 kilograms. Now that I'm on my deadlift specialization phase, I still deadlift once a week and lots and lots of quadricep work. And today, we're starting with a conventional deadlift. I'm gonna see where I'm at. I might do a few back down sets, skill work only. And then I'm gonna do some quad work. Deadlifts, I'm starting with 70 kilograms. And I'll probably do a couple of sets just to feel the technique. I'm gonna change I put the knee sleeves on for the warm up, but now I'm just gonna put kind of like, these are my elbow sleeves, I'll put them over my shins. This is something that I like to do with my deadlifts, is use a knee sleeve or something equivalent over the shins, which is going to allow me to keep the bar close. and not bruise the hell out of my shins. So, you know, to be honest with you, when I'm deadlifting, I don't really touch my shins that much. But if I do, I don't want to worry about it bleeding. Right? Bleeding on the bar, it's gross, unhygienic. So my footwear for deadlift is usually bare feet, but it's cold. So I'm going to wear my boxing shoes. This is kind of just my training shoes, really, or my lower body training shoes. So that's for my squats. I'll use the same ones. That's totally fine. But when I'm deadlifting heavy, you'll see me. I'll be wearing no shoes. We're doing that bare feet. And in competition, I like to wear just equivalent to bare feet, which is a deadlift slipper. It's pretty strange because you know, the rule is you have to have, you know, a shoe or something covering your foot for protection. And when people see, it's a very common thing when people see on social media, if you're bare feet, they're like, oh, watch out. What if you drop something on your foot? I'll tell you now, if you drop something on your foot with these shoes on, it's not really going to do much to protect you anyway, especially the deadlift slipper. So I believe that the rule is there from an insurance standpoint. Like that's what it is in gyms. Gyms don't allow bare feet. A lot of gyms, or the insurances don't allow bare feet because of safety. But if you drop these heavy weights on your toes, the shoes aren't going to do much to protect you. But either way, my footwear of choice for a deadlift in competition is the deadlift slipper, which is equivalent to bare feet. And right now, I'm wearing these shoes because they're comfortable and it's cold in Sydney. All of a sudden, what's the date today? Is it the 1st of May? 2nd of May. Yeah, so 2nd of May. So May is when it starts to cool down. So the last time I deadlifted was about a month ago and I did 300. Like it was just like a one-off session. It was really strange. Well, conventional deadlift. I'm really lying because I was doing stiff-legged deadlifts. So I got up to sets of 5 on 220 kilograms stiff-legged deadlifts. That was my accessory exercise. So I wasn't doing no deadlifts, but that's all I was doing. And yeah, I came in and I did a 300 kilogram deadlift on day one. Since then, I didn't do much. I did more RDLs with lighter weights and more reps, but no conventional deadlifts. So let's see. The number I have in mind today is based on these red plates. So I like the red plates and I'm thinking 270. I'd like to do a single on 270 today, just to feel it, and then maybe some back down work on something a little bit lighter, so maybe like 220. The way that I like to use the belt is a high belt position. How strange, you might be thinking. So this is something that I learned from one of my early mentors, Eric Lillibridge, who is still one of the best powerlifters on the planet. He had a 480 kilogram squat in the 140 class. Super strong guy. Him and his dad, Ernie Sr., came to Sydney and we did seminars together in 2014. And I learned a ton of good information from these guys on how to lift, how to compete, how to get strong. These guys made me really strong. And this is how Eric Lillibridge uses a belt in his deadlift, which was strange for me at first, but then it kind of started to make sense after a while. So it's just a really comfortable position. There's other great deadlifters that use this, but it's a preference thing. Thor Bjornsson has the belt down here, and that's where he feels the most support. So it's not as if I think this is better than any other position. It is for me, but maybe not for you. But I know that a lot of people that try this high belt position also like it. Anyway, set number 1, let's go. So check this out. Feet, hip width stance. Barbell in line with midfoot. Okay, so that's the middle of my shoe, right? So that's the center of my base of support. Right, so that's where, when you're maxing out, the barbell won't leave the ground if it's not in line with the center of your base of support. If it's forward, it won't leave the ground. That's maximal loads, okay? So you want to keep it in line with the center of the base of support. And then when I get in position, when I bend down to grab the bar, my shins will gently touch the bar, okay? So that's how deep you should be sitting into the movement. So from here, the barbell's about 1 to 2 inches away from my shins. But then when I reach down, it's gently touching. That's how I know, stop bending your knees. Don't bend even further than that because that's going to push the barbell forward from the center of my base of support. Okay, so hip width stance, barbell in line with midfoot. The next thing I do, reach down. Okay, so I don't just grab the bar, I'm stretching my arms down as far as possible. Okay, and when I do that, I feel my pecs contract. Okay, so that's lower pecs in particular, and also kind of lats. But then if you really want to get lats on, so you push down and that way. Okay, so that's armpits to pelvis, right? So that's a really strong back position. That recruits the upper back muscles, or especially the lats, and it helps keep the back rigid. Okay, so reach down and back. Ready? Feels okay. Feels a little bit of stiffness on the left side. A little bit, but so far so good. Does it matter where I hold the barbell? Absolutely. So what I want to do is be on the outside of my legs, right? But the most efficient position is arms straight down, right? So this is another reason why, like a lot of people they go, strong base of support, nice and wide. Maybe in a squat, but in a deadlift, unfortunately, what happens here is my arms need to go on the outside of that. The wider my grip, the longer I need to travel. That makes the movement inefficient, right? So the most efficient position is where the arms are straight down. That's when my arms are the longest and I travel the least distance, making the deadlift as easy and as efficient as possible, right? So that's another reason why we want hip width and arms just on the outside of that, ideally straight down. Now look at my proportions, and a lot of guys have broader shoulders and narrower hips. A lot of women that I work with have slightly different proportions. They have wider hips and narrower shoulders. So a lot of the times, a female's stance might look a little bit more like that. So proportionately, their stance might be a little bit wider. And as a result, their arms need to be on the outside of that. And that's also okay. So I say, ideal is arms straight down, but leg drive takes priority. So if you've got broader hips and narrower shoulders, get the stance right and put the arms just on the outside of that. I want to get my coffee. When I say I want to get my coffee, I want someone to get my coffee because I want to train. So that's what I normally do. So I've got gym upstairs, so we've got base gym downstairs, and then we've got base body studio upstairs, which is the women's only facility. And at some point, someone always needs to go grab a coffee and they send a message saying, anyone want a coffee? And that's my hack. I just wait for that. I'm like, yes, please, and a tea. So I'm waiting for someone to get me my coffee. Even though I've had a coffee this morning, I still want a coffee for the session. I gave you the main cues, which is stance, hip width, shins, barbell over midfoot. I was going to say shins an inch or two away from the bar, but barbell over midfoot and arms long and back, right? But then the next cue that we pair with that is reach the crown of the head towards the ceiling. So I want to stretch my spine, right? So that doesn't mean head up. Okay, there's a difference between head up and crown of the head to the ceiling. So you've got to imagine someone's grabbing you by the head and, okay, so that's stretch this part, like where I would wear my crown if I was a king, towards the ceiling. Another way of thinking about that is increase the distance between your ears and your shoulders. So no shrugging. That's an error that people make is they shrug. That made my arms shorter. Look at where my arms are on my waist. I want arms down, so shoulders away from your ears, all right? So belt, okay, this is unique to yourself, right? Okay, hip width stance, barbell over midfoot. Reach down and back, head to ceiling, okay? Why did you drop the weight? Great question. I'm glad you asked. Well, don't go do that at a commercial gym. You'll get a lot of upset people because it's loud and obnoxious, but we're not in a commercial gym. We're in my gym. There's not a huge amount of people here, and the people that are here deadlift as well. And this is a deadlift platform with plates that are designed to drop in that manner. Now, something about the way that I drop it, a bit of a discussion is people say, you should lower it under control. This allows you to get benefits from the eccentric portion of the lift. Sure, there might be some benefits, but in my opinion, I'm lifting heavy weights with all of my lifts. And actually, the eccentric portion of a lift is more fatiguing than the concentric portion. So something I'm always wanting to do, you've seen my week. I maxed out on squats this week. I maxed out on bench press this week. So a lot of that's really fatiguing. So I need to recover from those sessions. If I'm worried about slowing my eccentrics down and to max out all of my my muscle building potential and all of those things, I'm not factoring in fatigue. So that's something I always love to do with deadlifts. Deadlifts are a highly fatiguing exercise. Okay, so want to do my eccentric portion if I don't have to. A lot of new research out talking about which part of the lift is more beneficial for strength gain and muscle gain. And a lot of people used to talk, myself included, about eccentric lowering and slow eccentrics, and there's so many more benefits there. Actually, they found that it's more beneficial. You get more hypertrophy from the concentric portion than the eccentric portion. So, for the slow eccentric crew, there is a place for slow eccentrics. But when it comes to, I think the slow eccentrics are great for technique and understanding bar path and understanding how to stay tight under load. But if your goal is to get as strong as possible and build as much muscle as possible, the concentric portion is more beneficial than the eccentric portion. So there's my 2 cents on whether you should lower it under control or not. If I was at a commercial gym, I would lower it under control, just because I don't want to upset all of the other lifters. Feels comfortable. I'm going to do a few singles on this weight, just to, skill work. That's my warm-up. So a lot of people, I believe, and myself included, watched a video ages ago, many, many years ago, the first man who deadlifted 1,000 pounds. His name's Andy Bolton. And he put out a video once upon a time where he was doing deadlifts with heavy weights. He did 1 red plate aside, 2 red plates, 3 red plates, 4 red plates. And as he was deadlifting, he was exploding the concentric so much that it was flying off his hips. So he'd pick it up, whack, and it'd fly off his hips. And so a lot of people copied that because he was the best in the world. I copied it as well. And it made a lot of sense. You've got to lift fast. So if there's any sticking points, it travels through the sticking point. Anyhow, over the years, I've changed my perspective on that. And I think fast is good, but not at the expense of technique. I don't want to lift so fast that it takes it through sticking points. I don't want sticking points. A tattoo on Conor McGregor's arm, which says, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Now, I know it's from the Navy. It's not his quote, so don't get upset with me saying that. That's just where I learnt it from his tattoo. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That applies a lot with a lot of the lifts here. Okay, so something that I often teach is to start slow, to learn slow, and then introduce speed. Don't start fast, right? So start slow, master the technique, and then introduce speed. Don't start fast and then introduce technique. Do you get it? So the idea is, it's not that I'm trying to be slow, I'm trying to be smooth. Someone asked me a question, actually Mitch Hooper asked me a question about Thor's deadlift. He said, can you please explain to me what you're trying to do with his deadlift when why do you lift slow? And it's like, oh, I don't think anyone's lifted 1,000 pounds as fast as him ever, raw, or equipped, or 500 kilograms as fast as him ever, right? He's not trying to lift the light weights fast. He's trying to lift them all smoothly. So there's a fellow by the name of Boris Shiko. He's a powerlifting coach, very well-known Russian powerlifting coach. And he talks about with powerlifting compared to weightlifting. So if there's 120 kilograms on the bar, you put just enough force to lift 120 kilograms smoothly. If it's weightlifting, so if you're going to do a snatch, you've got to put a lot more force through the bar so it explodes up. But powerlifting is not you never see in a competition someone maxing out on a deadlift fast. They're grinding. Okay, so when people practice it with this hitch and this, exploding the weight, I think it teaches the wrong pattern. So anyway, so that's what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Okay, so let's do the technique thing again. Good one. Is my background on that? Thoracic. Isn't that interesting? Well, let's have a look at what thoracic spine means. So let's have a look at the skeleton. So this is the natural curvature of a spine. There is natural rounding in the thoracic spine, right? Now, a lot of people talk about straight back, neutral spine, all of these things. I'm not too fussed with neutral because everyone's slightly different. Here's a statistic for you. There's not a single deadlift world record that's ever been performed with an arched spine. There's always some degree of flexion. This is what I'm aiming for. Rigid torso. Right? So what does rigid mean? Rigid means whatever position you're in, whatever you start in, you want to kind of stay in that position and not be pulled further into flexion under load. Does that make sense? So if it's being pulled further into flexion under load, it means the muscles aren't able to support that weight. So what you're doing is you're resting on, the discs of your spine, which your discs are strong and your spine is strong. So don't be scared of that. But if you do that repeatedly with max loads, that's when you start running into back pain, right? So if you're doing a rigid torso from start to finish, that means your muscles are lifting the weight. You're not resting on the discs and your spine, right? So that's a good indicator. It's okay to be slightly rounded as long as it doesn't get pulled further into flexion because the weight is so heavy in your training, okay? Not in competition. In competition, you just get the thing up, right? And your back will probably be fine because you're not training like that every single week. You're training with your muscles lifting the weight. You're not training, by maxing out all the time. So have a look at my back as we progress through the weights. My aim is to maintain a rigid spine. I wouldn't mind seeing what the shape of it looks like. If there's a little bit of rounding, fine. But I wouldn't mind having a look. Why don't you come side on and check my next set. Well, this one's not going to round my back. It's only 120 kilograms. So that's, I don't think that would have rounded my back. Now we'll go up an extra red plate, so 170 next. Yeah, that's Charlene. That's Charlene. She's doing the same technique, actually. We're all trying to do the same technique here in base gym. We're all taught by the same person. This guy. This guy. Feels good. That feels, I mean, it's only 170, so it should feel like that. But I'll do another set, and then I'll go 220. All that fuss for like a third of a second. You know how funny it is? Like, it takes so much time to set up and do all those things, and then the lift is over. Anyhow, I guess that's a good thing, isn't it? One more set. No rest? Nah, like I rested, what was that? A minute. It's not fatigue. This session's all about technique. Here's another cue for you. Something about eye position and head position. I'll always say to keep your eyes locked on one spot, and actually not just your eyes, your face, right? So I like to say, everyone's different levels of mobility, but typically, if I was to say like a one-size-fits-all approach, most people would work really well. Pick a spot about 3 meters ahead of you on the floor, right? And look there with your whole face. So that means when you're at the bottom, your head's slightly up, right? Watch me, I'm gonna reenact. So my head's slightly up, so that's crown of the head to the ceiling. But then when I come up, my face is still in that direction. So it's slightly up at the bottom and then slightly down at the lockout. Right? So why do I want it slightly down at the lockout? A lot of times when people's heads lift and their focal point changes, it changes your balance and your orientation. And when your head lifts, people often lean back too far, which is inefficient. You want to be stacked. So in a powerlifting competition, you want to be completely vertical. I don't want to talk too much about back pain. Like, I've leant back in competitions and it's fine, but technically, if you lean back too far under load, that's when you're bending forward too much, that's usually disc-related injuries. When you're bending back too much, that's usually facet joint-related aggravation. I don't want to say injury, make you think you're going to injure yourself just by leaning back, but that could aggravate, right? But either way, what you want is completely vertical, okay? So head slightly up, head slightly down at the lockout. Keep your eyes on one spot. So that focal point, that balance is a huge part of looking clean. So that's another take home for you guys. 3 meters on the floor, 3 to 4 meters on the floor. Whole face facing it, not just your eyes. So don't just be here and then look up with your eyes, right? Whole face. And then tuck the chin at the lockout. I like to watch on all angles with my deadlift. With my squat, I just like 45 degrees front on, so a little bit of an angle. But with my deadlift, for aesthetics, for the page, 45 degrees front on. But if you want to really learn, you've got to expose the worst angles. So Do the side view on the next ones. But this one is 220, so not too heavy. Okay, so now, comfortable. Hey, I'll tell you something I haven't thought about is my hamstring / adductor that I hurt on squat day. Let me tell you what the technique looked like from this view. I feel like, you can come in, I feel like my hips shot up a bit early. Oh no, that was pretty good. It was pretty good. That was pretty clean. Nah, it's a bit Romanian deadlifty. Yeah, I reckon I could use my legs a little bit better. I'm gonna do that again, maybe a couple of times before I do the 270.
How do you use your legs more or better?
Bend them more. Yeah, so I feel like my hips are high. My start position is my hips are a little bit too high. I'm being a little bit too conservative. I think I need to sit my butt down a little bit more, bend the knees a little bit more. And a cue that I use for deadlift is to think about push the world away. So people say, is it a push or a pull? You can't deadlift without pulling, right? You have to pull. But you can deadlift without pushing, okay? So a deadlift without a push is lock your knees out, that's a stiff-legged deadlift, right? So that's a deadlift without there's no push there, there's no leg drive. It's pure pull. So therefore, because you can't deadlift without pull, stop thinking about pull. Like you're gonna pull, think push, right? So the way that I like to think about it is you lock your body in place and you push the world away, right? So imagine the barbell's still and the floor will come down. So that's how you got to think of it. Or another way, you can think of it as like a leg press. So think you've locked your body in position, locked your torso, and instead of thinking of pull up, think lock that away and then push down. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do. So I'll try and do that. I mean, it was, nice form, which is like, straight back or whatever, but not very strong. That's not how I want to be maxing out. I don't want to be maxing out. That's not the most efficient position. I want to bend my knees more and drive those legs through the ground a little bit more aggressively. Okay, let's do that again. You have to earn the right to add weight to the bar. So if you do a set, so it's like, the logical warm-ups, this is not what I do. I don't just go, okay, we did the warm-up on 220, so then you're gonna do the next one. If I need to work on something, I don't go add weight and then hope to work on it. I work on it, fix it at the same weight, and then once I've done that, then I'll add weight, especially on these sessions. Do you know what I mean? Like this is a test session. I'm not testing my 1 rep max, I'm just testing my limits at the moment. Not limits, I shouldn't say that, I'm saying the wrong words. I'm just seeing my baseline, not limit. Limit's up here, baseline's down here. That's where I'm working towards. Maybe an RPE 7. You're recording, Charlene? Look at the technique. It's pretty good. See that? She's doing the same things that I'm doing, right? So look, she's picked a spot 3 meters in front. Her head's rigid on that spot, doesn't change. So when she starts, she's slightly up. When she finishes, she's slightly down. Same cues. But it's nice to see. So it's same cues, but the way it presents on different lifters is slightly different. Felt okay? Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's only 220. Yeah, that's pretty good. I like. Very nice. Yeah, good. It's like nothing. But at the same time, hamstrings shouldn't really be hugely active during deadlifts. Okay, they're on, I'm not saying that they're not on, but they're not the best hamstring builder. Hamstrings have 2 functions. That is hip extension and knee flexion, right? When I bend over for the deadlift, so think of this action, right? So that stretches the hamstrings, right? But then that relaxes the hamstrings. So you can feel it yourself. If you were to bend over and touch your toes, and then you bend the knees, it's way easier. because that takes the tension off the hamstrings, which is what you're doing with the deadlift. If you want to hit your hamstrings in a deadlift, you want to do Romanian deadlifts where you're not bending the knees that much. Do you get it? You maintain tension on the hamstrings by locking the knees in place. Not like completely locked, slight bend, but locked in this position, right? So when you do a conventional deadlift, you're relieving tension off the hamstrings. So therefore, you're not stimulating much muscle growth or activity in the hamstrings because it's a biarticular muscle, crosses two joints. If you have hamstring injuries, it kind of makes sense that you might be able to do deadlifts as well as squats. Now, I know the technical people at home are going to say, well, how did you hurt yourself doing a squat then, if it's not active in a squat? Yeah, good question. Because sometimes it's just the weakest link, right? Which is why we still need to strengthen those muscles. And especially in a low bar squat, the low bar squat is more hamstrings, slightly, even though there's not a huge amount, it's slightly more than a high bar squat because it's more hip dominant. I'm pushing my hips back further and further, so there's a little bit of tension on the hamstrings. But then that's just how it goes. When you're pushing your limits, like I've injured pecs doing deadlifts. I've injured triceps doing deadlifts. I've strained my neck doing deadlifts, so it's like unrelated muscles. Obviously, the hamstrings are a lot more related with your squat and deadlift, but when you're maxing out, when you're pushing yourself, like you're contracting all sorts of muscles unintentionally. So, when you max out, it's not perfect. Okay, and that's sometimes tweaks like that. Like maybe if you zoomed in and really analysed my top squat, maybe I was unbalanced. Maybe I shifted more to one side. I don't know, whatever. That's just what happens. That's life. And that's totally fine. And that's why we do accessory exercises, right? So that's why I'll strengthen those muscles that are part of the equation, but not so much. That's why I'll do hamstring curls after and leg extensions after.
You have a set program, or are you going to decide on your program after this session?
Yeah, I'm going to decide on the program after this session. Exactly. So I still want to do some more quad work. So that's something that I'll never not do. So my quads, that's my baseline. Sorry, not my quads, my squat strength. That's my baseline. When my squat's up, everything's up. So I don't want to, even though I'm doing deadlift specialization, I'm not going to turn my back from squats. And right now, I'm doing a lot of great work by doing squats twice a week. So low volume squats 2 times per week. I don't want to just specialize on deadlift and neglect the squats. I still want to keep the squats will always stay there, but I just won't be maxing out on the squats every week. So after this, I want to do more quad work. It's okay. It's okay. Slow down for sure from the 220. Let's see. It's okay. I might just do another set of 1. That's not fatiguing. Definitely harder than the 220. Of course it was. It's 50 kilograms more. Definitely not max. Could have done more reps of that. It was quite comfortable. Didn't take me out of position. The goal is to keep it sub-maximal. I'll do 1 more set of 1. A lot of great deadlifters do a lot of rep work. For me, my rep work comes from volume from squats, right? Now, I will do some type of rep work. So the rep work that I typically like to do for deadlifts is the accessory, so Romanian deadlifts. And I'll tell you another really great accessory that I like to do is a pause deficit deadlift. I wouldn't mind doing a little bit of that. But maybe I'll just introduce that in next week's program. What I do want to do is my stiletto squats. I want to do another week of stiletto squats. Mainly because megorexia. I'm scared that my legs are going to shrink if I don't. Whatever, that's why. What? Yeah, but seriously, that's probably why I do have a good squat, because I prioritize it. So, on day 1, so Monday, all I did was 2 sets. I did the 300, and then a back down set of 240, and then I threw in the towel. I didn't do any more work after that because I thought I may be injured, and it was a good move. But that means I haven't done a lot of volume on my quads this week.
In denial. She's like every almost like more minutes.
Yep. To be honest with you, it's a bit heavy today. Maybe I am guarding my hamstring. Maybe I'm fatigued from my squat. Sometimes it's like, it's pretty good. Like, I think if I had to do 300 kilograms today, I'd be able to, for sure. Of course I'd be able to do 300 kilograms. But anyway, that's me for deadlifts today. Next up, stiletto squats. Rest? Not really. Like, I don't really need to rest. That's not fatiguing, and I'm gonna go straight into a warm-up set for stiletto squats anyway. Do you know what I mean? So that's gonna be my rest. I'll be able to, my rest will be however long it takes for me to unload this, and then I'm gonna do, I'll warm up from an empty bar, and I'll get up to, well, last sets of stiletto squats was 180 kilograms for 8. 190 kilograms is not a number, so we're gonna go straight to 200, and then go for 3s. Something like that. I'm not going to max out, but fuck, who knows? Knowing me, I will end up maxing out on it. So what did she say? Stop that. And you said no. What did she say to stop doing? She didn't mean stop it. She was like, stop it. Was it a girl? Stop it. Stop it. Is that what that was? Not stop fucking doing that. Oh, stop it. Oh, there's a difference. There's a difference. Mm. There. Good. Now keep the shoulders dropped. So don't fucking shrug. Keep that drop. Now roll it there, there. Good. Now squat. Drop the shoulders, drop the shoulders. There. What a difference. Okay, I know why you're not doing it, because you want to stabilize it and you don't want it to roll off your body. That's why you're doing that, so it doesn't roll off. Wrong. You got to drop it. Yeah, and maybe use wrist wraps. I'll tell you a cue that I've started noticing that a lot of people do with their squats. When they're trying to do a low bar squat, they shrug. They're trying to hold the bar so it doesn't roll down their back, and they're shrugging. Okay, so this causes other issues, but it's, to put it simply, it's weaker, right? So what you want to do is drop the shoulders. Same cue as deadlift. Increase the distance between your shoulders and your ears. Okay, so the reason why people shrug is to balance it on their back. So use wrist wraps. Lock it in, pull your elbows back and down, right? And lock it in place. Way stronger. It's a hack. It shouldn't really be a hack. It's a hack because not many people are doing it. And I sit there and watch people and it's like, okay, let's try this. And then all of a sudden, their squats feel stronger. Okay. So more good news is I don't feel that injury that the owie that I did from the squat day. So that was my hamstring. But this is the reason why I had this in mind for today is even less hamstring involvement with the upright stiletto squat. So the more you poke your butt back, the more tension there is on the hamstring. So the more upright you are, the less tension there is on the hamstring. So I kind of had a feeling that even if my hamstring was a little bit sore today, that at the very least I'd be able to do this squat. And yes, confirmed, I feel nothing on the hamstring. But I felt nothing on the hamstring from the deadlifts as well, so perfect. I don't think he was proud of that lift. It was only 270. You know, he only gets happy when I do something decent. I think it's also, I mean, 270 is not bad, but I think it moved a bit slowly, so I can tell by his expression, he's not impressed. So it feels like it's coming up easy, and it is coming up easy, but it's, I'd rather be on the couch at home watching TV. You know, so like, you know, to go as far as to say it's comfortable, like it's coming up quickly. So next set is 180. That's what I did on the last session. Today I want to do 200 for a triple. We'll see. I think I should be able to. Lovely technique. I'll admit it. But you know, if you think about it, this is like way lighter than what my big squats are. So it should be lovely technique. But that's the idea of these accessory lifts. They're not really like ego lifts where you really have to be pumping out heavy, heavy weight. I want to be stimulating muscle growth for this one. So technique is got to be pretty strict with these exercises. Right? These accessory exercises, you can cheat it and make it even easier. I'll tell you how, by letting your butt poke back, right? So that defeats the purpose of this exercise. And that's what a lot of people do is they get the heel elevation and they go down and they go up. No, you can't just go down and up. You've got to be upright and use your quadriceps to stand up. Don't go up and then use your hips and back again. So that defeats the purpose of it. For me, if I start doing that, that'll tell me that the weight's too heavy for this exercise. Rep range for this, I like between 3 to 6 rep range. So I did 180 kilograms last phase, starting on triples, and then I kept on going up, till I got, you see what I did, didn't you? Oh, thank you, man. Thank you, man. Yeah, so I did 180 until I got, started at triples until I got 6 reps on that. So instead of going, 7 reps or 8 reps, I like that rep range. For this exercise, right, it's a pretty complex movement when you've got to really focus on, that body position. As I said, 190 is not a number, so the goal is 200 for 3, which I think I can. All right, let's go. Okay, good one. That felt a lot harder than 180s felt last week, but we got 3, so good on, we'll do another set. Let's do it. That felt more comfortable than the first set. But that's done, 2 by 3. And I'm gonna go and do some fluffy stuff, a little bit of hamstring curls, very light, just to see if my hamstring, like directly, when I hit it with the hamstring curls, to see if it's okay. I'm sure it's fine, there's no tears or anything major. But I didn't do any direct hamstring work, so I can't really tell if the muscle is strained or injured properly, but I'll do some light work. I know that it is a lot better and I'll be able to continue. But that's today's session, and that's day one of reintroducing deadlifts to my program. I'm gonna continue to deadlift every week, and when I say prioritize it, I mean I'm not gonna max out on my squats, I'll continue to squat, but the next phase, I'll be working towards, 320 kilogram for the deadlift. You know, that's a weight that I've done before and more when I was a heavier body weight, but let's see if we can do it again. Thanks for joining, guys. If there's anything else you want to see, put it in the comments section. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.